Hello and welcome back to that Eurovision site where, for the first time this season, we're back and looking back at the mistakes we've made. Because we're talking about Montesong 2024. We'll be looking back at what happened in the contest, the songs we liked in the contest, the results, the hosting, and maybe some terribly aged predictions we made. As with the preview video, I am joined by...
Angus, once again using he, him pronouns to the shock of everyone.
And I'm Kittens, she, her pronouns. Hi.
Hello. So, if for those who haven't seen the show, Montesong 2024 was won by NeonoeN with their song CLICKBAIT. Now, I think it is safe to say that none of us expected this. I don't think really anyone outside of Montenegro expected this. What do we
From
think of the
what I
winner?
can tell, not even those
Yeah.
in Montenegro expected this.
I think ESC Extra are doing a prediction series. Literally no one predicted NeonoeN were going to win. Not a single person. What do we think of them?
I mean, it had a. I mean, the one thing I'll say is the guitar riff is really funky.
Yeah,
And I suppose it's got a really chantable,
yeah.
you know, bit.
I have been chanting it in my head for quite a while now.
Yeah, I think it does have, it is going to be recognizable to people. Like,
Yeah,
somebody hearing it for the first time is going to be able to get that, like, it has that little, like, kick. The thing is, I definitely feel like it needs a revamp because it
yeah,
just feels, I mean, it just feels undercooked. I mean,
yeah,
we talked about this in the pre one, like everything in the selection pretty much felt undercooked, and this is no exception. So I'd love to see them just do a bit more with it. It just needs to be, in the words of Michael Rice, bigger. Everybody disgusted because I mentioned Michael Rice.
he's a good
Um,
guy.
yeah, he is.
It's, it's not
I
his fault he had a terrible John Lundvik song,
I mean, let's I just listened back to the You Decide podcast this morning, and I am in defense of Michael Rice. So
as he
if
should
you
be.
are interested in that, you should go and check out the podcast.
John Lundvik just wanted to sabotage his competition. But back to Montenegro. Angus,
Mm,
what did you think of the song?
It wasn't my favorite, but it definitely has something going for it. As we said, it's very undercooked. This sounds like a demo at the moment. I do think that live, and of course, there's always the sound mixing and the backing track being played live, etc., etc. But I do think that live it sounded better than the studio version did. So that is already good news for the song also going towards Eurovision. Um, yeah, it does have a certain catchiness to it. It's also good that it's not just the shouting clickbait. It's also like that little the melody line directly behind it that makes it like really work. So you both have a bit of melody and a bit of lyrics that's, you know, going to lodge in your brain. It's yeah, it would have been my pick, but and either for who should win or who would win, but I'm pleasantly surprised in a way. Like this was like an
Yeah,
oddball choice that does fit in with the brand that Montenegro has as a country in Eurovision for Euro
yeah.
fans at least. Like this is not the same obviously, but it does fit in with Euro by Rambo Amadeus and Ikran Kahusi, like that kind of chaos nonsense slightly in a positive way, it does seem to fit in with, and that I
Yeah.
appreciate.
I think this is going to grow on me more than it already has, which is quite a bit, because I think it can. There is room for improvement. I think they've got plenty of time to improve it. And I agree with the things that have already been said, that it's got good hook. It's catchy. You can chant along to it. Like even someone who doesn't know the song, they can be singing along to it by the end, which is great. I also like that on stage that they've given themselves an identity. They've got the, welding, hammers, staging sorted out with their thing. It's a staging concept, which is a lot more than other people had that night, and it's something that can be developed and made bigger and better for future performances of this at Eurovision, at pre-party events. I'm sure they could have like a great time. I get like one of those big like inflatable hammers they'd like carry around with them. That would be a great fun. And
So
it's
you
more
saying like NeonoeN do Ich kundige.
absolutely yes. And it set us up for a season full of hilarious clickbait jokes as well, which I cannot wait for.
You are preparing all of your
Yes,
social media posts for this, aren't you? You're getting
absolutely.
every joke going.
Just met the Montenegrin band. Hashtag not clickbait. But it is clickbait. But we have fun here at that Eurovision site. Now, NeonoeN might have won, but there were 15 other songs performed on the night as part of the competition. There are a lot more performed by mostly Vladana as well. Speaking of Vladana, what did we think of her moving into a hosting capacity? As well as the other guy, who his name escapes me.
I they as far as I can tell, as somebody who does not speak the language at all, they seemed very competent hosts. I could have done without Vladana singing every 30 seconds.
She was having a good time, leave it
She's
be.
she's a great talent. I just didn't need it to happen constantly. Yeah, she is really talented, but I did not really need to hear her sing a line from every Eurovision song that she can remember.
I
But
know it was cute.
I
I would rather have an annoying host than a boring host.
I mean, I don't think it was fully like annoying. It was just like, here we go again, kind of thing. This felt a little bit like the Vladana show
Yeah,
with everybody else. And it's kind of like you're meant to be showcasing the other artists, not
I
yourself.
mean they showcased the other artists fine. They had the green room where they had a chance to sing every Eurovision song they remember.
I mean, but we also had half an hour. Can I remind you, half an hour of blathering on and performances before we even got the first song. I,
Yeah,
I don't know. That felt like a choice.
it is the choice, but it's a choice they made to like. I wouldn't have done it. I don't think they should have done it. I understand why they did it because it's the first edition of Montesong. They want to. It's basically a law dump. So here's literally everything we've ever done in Eurovision. We weren't that good,
Yeah,
were we?
the
Hopefully,
problem
we'll be
is
better from
that
now on.
yeah, see, that's the problem. Like Montenegro have not done well in Eurovision. That is the issue.
Yeah, maybe that's just their evil scientist backstory.
It felt a little bit like a showcase of look how good we are while everybody sits there and watches various like
G
it was just a mess
Gianni
a
was
little bit.
nice.
It was fine, but we heard it like 7 times throughout the night. At that point, I was like, please don't sing that song again. Apologies to Nikki French. Um, but I don't know. They were perfectly competent hosts. As far as I can tell, not knowing any of the language, I wasn't sitting there wanting to put my head in a bucket at any point. I think for our first edition as well, I think they did reasonably well. We had a few technical hiccups in terms
Yeah,
of the like not really the host's fault, but more like
Yeah.
how the actual show was put together. We had some moments where we saw the runners and stuff
Yeah.
on stage and things like that, but teething problems rather than an
Yeah.
overarching series of failures, I
Uh,
think, if you know what I mean.
yeah. I do think all in all, production-wise, minus the few hiccups that were made, you're pretty good. Like for a small Eastern European or Central European, depending on who you ask, country, it was it looked a lot less low budget than we know it was. Like the stage was good, the production, like graphics and that, they were all right. And we will see a lot worse national finals than that this year, I think, in terms of production, in terms of hosting, in terms of songs. So for a first edition, I think they've done pretty well to set groundwork for future editions, and where people can say, "Yeah, this seems fun. I'll submit a song to it next year." Or I know someone can participate. I know songwriters. Let's get them together. Let's get Montesong on the map. And also, they got Emily de Forest.
Yeah, I think everybody was like,
Yeah,
because
As a
because
performer and as a judge, like as both.
yeah,
it was I'm going to disgrace
there's,
Rory because Rory was like, "Oh no, not the cover of Only Teardrops," and then we were like, "Rory, not cover,
yeah.
not
But,
cover."
but we all like found out at the same time. It's her, and
Yeah,
it took like a few seconds after she started performing to go, hang on, that's Emily de Forest, Eurovision winner, performing Only Teardrops in Podgorica at Montesong. And then she single-handedly decided the winner
sort of. Yeah.
in a roundabout way. But back to songs. Aside from the winner, were there any particular performances that stood out to us, whether for your favorite slaying or someone that surprised you and maybe went up in your rankings?
You can't shake your head, Angus.
I mean, not particularly. Yes, I can. Not particularly. I mean, it was all not to also partially go back to the discussion that you two had earlier, but it was just a competent national final, and I think
Yeah,
overall all of these performances were competent. There were some songs where I'm like the sound mixing felt off, and that I mean more as sort of like they're trying to equalize it so that the voice of the performer actually goes through well, but then it turns out it just makes it sound worse. But
Yeah,
that
there were
is,
some which were really apparent. I want
but
to
there
say
the question
Luka
is like.
Radovic was one was
yeah,
you could barely hear him over the backing track.
But there the thing is like whose fault is that? Because that's not just on the that's also on the performer because that's what you have the in-ear monitors for. That's what they well, all the rehearsals for, and clearly were quite a few rehearsals that were done for this. Like this was a well put together and everyone knew what they were doing kind of show. So then I'm also like, well, we also need to look at the performers at a certain point because you are here to decide what the song should sound like live. And that is something that I think is, and what it should look like live. Like, obviously, they will have had help with the staging in some way or another, but you can see that bands and artists with a clearer sense of self and identity, like NeonoeN, they came to the stage with a very specific energy to bring through and bringing it as well, compared to some others that were just like standing about or hired whatever local theater director they could get their hands on. Which always fine, but it's definitely a distinct thing. And if we're talking for Eurovision, then NeonoeN definitely was one of the best ways to go, I think.
yeah.
And so yeah, it's just that really stood out to me. Like the what you could really see the difference here between people where at least felt like really they had a big say in how things were going versus people that didn't have a strong opinion either way on how they were presented on stage, musically and visually.
I think there was some very fun staging. Not not necessarily good, but fun. In that,
There was certainly some unexpected stuff going on in a lot of staging.
there was certainly a Dolce hair performance.
I mean, I still enjoy that song. I think the performance was slightly, well, I'm going to say slightly, but very messy. It was a little bit. It, you're going to hate me for this, Daniel. It reminded me a bit of Luna's performance, where she's just trying to run around to get on all the bits of staging. Um, I don't mean that as a slight
I
to Luna, but
I
there was
hate that I
so
see
much
your
of
point.
there's so much bits of staging that needed to be done and bits that needed to be unveiled, and you forgot to do the take one thing off before you leave the house thing for staging, and I was just like, there is a lot going on here. You could have just not done some of this, but also there were some artists where the stage just felt really empty, and it
Yeah,
wasn't a big stage. um the first one we had, Anastasia Koprolek, apart from her waving her arms around, I was like begging for something to happen on that stage, because I was like, this could be a big moment,
yeah,
and it just felt very empty. Now, we don't really know whether that's a individual artist budget problem, or whether that is all sorted out with broadcasters or record labels or however it's done, But um, I think there was definitely some artists who just felt very small on
yeah.
what is essentially quite a small stage to start with anyway. It's not like you're not stepping onto like an arena stage.
No.
This is a TV studio stage. So I feel like there's a bundle of people who did not just scale up their ideas very well.
After all that, do you have anything nice to say?
I mean, no, I don't think that was a mean thing to say. It was just, you know, I just think some artists clearly had a lot more budget, Milena Vishik, than other artists, or a lot more of a vision than other artists. Now, whether
But
that vision was accurately or well portrayed is another thing, but they definitely had a vision.
Yeah, because I want to I desperately need to see the vision board of the Gloomsy Men's staging concept with because it is actually quite high concept with the curtain that tries to like sort of shrouds them and they're standing still as if they're frozen in ice or something. Like there's definitely something going on, and that actually looked cool if it were done just a little bit better. Like now it just felt awkward, but I think that's also because of how they were standing. But it was so clearly, and I say this with love, because some of the best theater performances I've seen in my life were community theater, but it was very community theater energy. Especially then that disappeared, and there was a sudden wedge on the stage. There's no other way to put that. They were then standing around, and it was like story time hour, but for the guitarist for some reason, and
It
there was a
felt
lot going
so
on.
much like a Jonathan Larson production. I cannot explain why, but still.
There was a ballerina moment with the. There was so much going on. It was kind of great, but also kind of like, okay, I'm going to need to have a 15-minute explainer of what everything means about this performance for this 3-minute long performance. Like, I need a little guidebook for this, which I do love, but it's also maybe not what you need for a one-off televised performance.
yeah, I would like to give a shout out to Isaac Spanovich because that performance was just so fun, and it wasn't a song that was particularly high up in my rankings beforehand, but by the end of the night, I was kind of rooting for him a little bit. Cause
I woke up this morning with that song in my head.
yeah,
Like, and it's gonna like I'm gonna
I,
forget about it for like 3 months, and then I'm gonna be in the shower and I'll just be like,
I think that if he had won and he'd gone to like the pre-parties, I would be like in the pit at LEP loving that
yeah.
because it would be such a fun thing to see live, and he was robbed. He was absolutely robbed. Sure, clickbait deserving winners, but he deserved a lot higher, I think.
I mean, I will say the one that really stood out to me that I didn't really care for on the recording was Nina Zizic. That was uh, like I'm never going to listen to that again realistically. But she was a brilliant performer and
Yeah.
it was just heartbreaking somehow. It was just you felt like somebody had just like carved out your heart from your body, put it on a table in front of you, and stabbed it with a knife. And I mean that as a
Oh,
compliment. Um, but yeah,
I think that was the most professional performance of the night. Like you can tell that she's had years and years of performing at that level. You can tell that she was the returnee. But she could have definitely seen through that mask anyway. It was not very thick.
yeah, I I was genuinely impressed by that. I think
Yeah.
everybody else did roughly what I thought they were going to do. As much as I love Isaac Savanovic and he was absolutely my winner of the night, he did exactly what I expected him to do, and that
And
is
that was great.
great. But she was the surprise for me in that I was like, whoa, okay, yep.
Also, brief shout out to the Mecha Scorpion. Because okay.
I really wanted that to do something.
Yeah.
I was really expecting it to be like she would be standing on it like majestically and be wheeled across the stage while like I don't know some sort of like pyro appeared from the back of it or some I don't know. I was expecting full on
Just,
drama.
just everything about Milena Vucic and her time in Montesong is just incredibly strange. From getting maybe or maybe not botted views on her video to that staging and the Scorpion and the Scorpion crown to getting 49 votes, which if you're gonna allegedly buy views, why don't you allegedly buy votes? Because she could have
I
like
mean,
won
this is
with
this is a song that came third with the juries,
yeah.
effectively, and came last with the televote. Um,
So
so
so something's happened there. Allegedly. Don't sue me, please.
it just something felt desperately off
Yeah.
about the whole thing. But I was also very disappointed to find it was not a rocket powered scorpion or something. I really
Uh,
was disappointed.
while we're speaking about jury votes, massive shout out to Dolce Hera getting 8 votes in the juries by accident. I just love that. It's so perfectly welcome back to national final season because the chaos is back. Like Montesong itself, we've got like 5 entries in the national final iceberg already. And that's really what we want as fans from a show like this. It's just things to remember it by. Because we've got Dr. Shahira, we've got Emily DeForest randomly showing up, we've got accidental jury votes, we've got maybe or maybe not view botting, and that's
A
things that
surprise scorpion truck that
yeah
does nothing.
yeah
Um,
again
and of
Emily
course,
DeForest.
I'm popping down the war stop. Anybody want anything?
Okay, before we talk about how we think NeonoeN are going to do, I would like to revisit who we thought would win Montesong 2024. Now, I said Isaac Shivanovic. He came, I think, eighth. And you know what? I stand by it. I think that could have got reasonable jury support from just being like a fun song, and it's not like boring people on the jury. It was actual like musicians who can vibe with it. But it just didn't happen, and sometimes that happens. I'll go to Angus next because of what's coming afterwards. And yours was Georgia, I believe.
Yes, I said Georgia would win. I mean, she finished fourth and she was
Yeah,
third in the televote.
that I really liked Georgia's performance. I think it was just really, really like something from like a Disney musical. It was just very cute. And lastly, but last and perhaps least,
Okay, so I said Dolce Hera, but let's hang on. This was my logic that Montenegro are going to pick something weird. And let's be fair, they did actually pick something weird and off kilter, not what people are expecting. So my logic was fine. I just picked the wrong song.
you picked the very wrong song.
I it came in, due to that vote issue, it came in not last.
I would like to note that Dolce Hera got fewer votes from the just in total people voting for it than famed televote bomb The Devil Lives in Spain from Pambandom is now 2022. I just want to put that in perspective.
Look, my
But
logic was flawless.
your
It's just a problem that I picked the
your
wrong
logic
song
was
that was weird.
flawless. You just picked that.
It
Hello,
just
Doc. Hello, Doctor Hero. If you're watching this, there is a people love you. By the way,
I
and they
love that
should,
song.
but
I
like
want to be listening to that song, not in November though. I want to be listening to that song on the Sun Lounger with a big fancy drink in my hand.
there is a very sizable chunk of the Eurovision fandom who are standing Doctor Hero right now,
I love
and
that. I
I
love
think
that for her.
that's just really nice for her. I think.
uh, in Kitten's defense, there were, if the pure logic is something somewhat weird would be chosen, there just were a lot of songs that could be defined like that. Because not just clickbait and repeat, like Stop War was a old song in the way it was built up. And
War stop.
War Stop. And then the Gloomshy Bend performance was quite something. And then we of course had Baryak who did win the televote, and that was, people already pegged that as a potential disaster bomb, and it kind of worked out on the stage with how it was performed. It was a bit of a mess, affectionately. Like I mean it genuinely affectionately, but it was a bit of a mess.
I was kind of disappointed by the Bariac staging. I feel that they could have done a lot more, especially when the girl starts singing on her own. They kind of just left it
They just
and
need to
didn't.
throw a spotlight on it. Just a spotlight would
Yeah.
have fixed that entire staging. But they didn't. And you know what? That's also kind of a delightful mess that we need in national finals.
Now, NeonoeN, they won the show and they also won the right to represent Montenegro at Eurovision, meaning not only we've got our first Eurovision song of the season. I mean, it means we got our first Eurovision song of the season. How do you think that they're gonna do? Like, it just in general, because let's
I
face it.
mean, I feel like my predictions.
Go on,
I
NeonoeN are the Eurovision 2025 winners. Yeah!
Yeah,
Well done,
maybe
guys.
I should say that oh NeonoeN won't qualify, and then that'll make them qualify. Maybe that'll work. I don't
I
know. Like
I think they've got a better chance than some people are giving them credit for.
I think it's so hard to tell at this early stage. This is
Yeah.
our first song. We have no idea what else is coming up. And if we get a year with a glut of rock bands, and they can't stand out, then that might be a problem for them. But that's too early to tell. Just
Yeah.
taking the song off on pure whatever it's got. I think with a revamp to give it more oomph and a clear, like, the staging idea is good, but I think they need to just, you
Yeah,
know, do something a little more with it. And obviously they're going to have a bigger stage, they're going to have bigger graphics, whatever to deal with. So there's going to be something more to add. So I wish them the best. Is they've got something they could do this.
yeah.
We're looking at Montenegro, who haven't qualified for a while. I kind of don't want to curse them though, so I feel like I need to say NeonoeN are not gonna qualify. Wink, wink. Um, so that they glide easily through into the qualification.
I think that they certainly have a path. Like there will be an audience there to vote this through if they do it right. I think only if they like stage it right and sing it right, and if they keep their identity for what they built up in the national final, like with all like the welding, the coal miners, whatever, they've got a decent shot. I'm not going to say they're gliding through because I don't think they will, but I'm not going to rule them out like some national final winners have immediately been ruled out before. Because there is potential here still, and they've got a lot of time to work on it to make something a lot better than it is currently, which is already pretty good, I think.
Yeah, I do think this will struggle to qualify, just because smaller countries seem to be struggling with the pure televote qualification we're really seeing. Rock songs specifically have been really struggling, and this has been historically true in Eurovision, at least for the last like over a decade, which is rock songs get more jury votes than televotes. And that's great for the for the grand final result, but it's not great news for getting to the grand final. And I think that adds up a bit to me thinking it won't do well, regardless of how well it deserves to do, because I do feel this is a song that, especially if it gets some good staging, a little bit of a rework, just a little bit, just hand it over to a producer to give it another look over, maybe record an extra guitar line to throw in there, that kind of thing. I think it should be doing very well from a quality standpoint, but it won't do that great, which is a shame. But this is the kind of song that Montenegro can at least then build on and
Yeah.
should be proud for. I think they can genuinely be proud for the kind of songs they had in the national final, for this also winning. It will stand out no matter what. Like, even if we get only rock songs this year, it would still stand out because it's a very specific kind of song. And that's something that definitely should be celebrated. Um, and I
I
think
think
that is, depending on how many pre-parts they go to, I think they will bring, the party to the pre-parts. It does have a energy to it that most people can enjoy when they see it in live performance.
I think that if they
I
had
for one will be shouting
somebody,
along.
I think if they had somebody quite savvy behind this, what they could really do is make it into a social media thing.
Oh yeah.
And you could absolutely channel the whole bits of the songs and make it into like a TikTok thing, because it feels so set up for that. Now, obviously, come back in like 5 months' time, 6 months' time to find out whether that actually happens or whether they just give it nothing. But I think there is that opportunity that what they could really do to get the energy behind it is to get big on social media with it. Because it does just really have
Yeah.
that, literally written into it. So,
So unless we have any further point, that is that. We have our first Eurovision Song of the Year. It's so good to be back.
oh yeah.
It's like we've never been away. Thank you so much for watching this video on that Eurovision site. Be sure to hit subscribe, comment below what your favourite was and what you think of the winning song. And be sure to follow us on that Euro site on all of our platforms. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, Tumblr. And also follow That Euro podcast on where you get your podcasts. And for all your Eurovision news, check out that Eurovision site. All that's left to say now is goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.